"Don't look in here. The dead are better off than the living." That was the last thing I heard before I decided to escape the hell known as Factory 401. I was born in a poor village. My father left us when he was still young, and my mother's health was always fragile. So I had to find a job quickly to make ends meet. One morning, I saw a flyer posted at the bus stop. Hiring, packaging workers, high pay, meals, and housing included. The address led to a small factory on the outskirts of town. They called it Factory 401. The first day I arrived, the manager greeted me warmly. He spoke gently, handed me a short contract, nothing detailed, no fine print. All I had to do was sign. Inside the factory, the air was thick with the smell of metal, canned goods, and a cold, iron-like scent. They said this place produced canned food for export. I worked there for a week. People treated me well, the meals were decent, and I had my own room to sleep in. I started thinking, maybe I got lucky. But soon after, everything changed. In the second week, the job became harder. We were forced to work overtime nonstop, sometimes until sunrise. Anyone who complained about being tired was beaten and denied food. Phones were strictly forbidden. As usual, trucks arrived in a long line every night, pulling into the factory grounds in silence. Everyone quietly unloaded the cargo. The crates had no labels. The smell that came from them was strange, strong, cold, almost chemical. It didn't smell like food. At first I was curious, but over time I got used to it. I stopped thinking about it until tonight. While we were working, one of the workers accidentally dropped a crate. The lid popped open and dry ice spilled across the floor, freezing cold, reeking of chemicals, and then it rolled out. I froze in place. It was a human liver, fresh, preserved in cold fluid, sealed in a sterile bag, with a stamped label that read, "Medical Export Product." The man next to me leaned in and whispered, "Don't look. In here, the dead are better off than the living." After a few weeks, 3 workers tried to escape. They were caught that same night. The next morning, all of us were gathered in the concrete yard outside the factory. The 3 men knelt in the middle of the yard, heads bleeding, eyes swollen shut. The director spoke coldly. "You see this? This is what happens to those who try to run." He gestured to the guards. 2 of them dragged the men away and threw them into the freezer behind the storage room. The crash of metal echoed through the air. Then silence. From that day on, we never saw them again. After that night, I made up my mind to escape. Staying one more day in that place felt like digging my own grave. I waited for the Friday night shift. I had planned everything carefully. When the assembly line lights went out, I slipped quietly toward the back door. I moved through the blind spot of the security camera near the storage room, then climbed over the fence at the far corner. Rain poured down. The wind was freezing. I ran barefoot across the muddy yard, slipping, bleeding, but never daring to look back. I didn't stop until I saw flashing red and blue lights, a police car on patrol. Relief flooded through me. I waved my arms, shouting until my throat went raw. The officer stopped, got out, and asked what had happened. I told him everything, the factory, the organ trafficking, all of it. He nodded calmly, his voice reassuring. "Don't worry, you're safe now." "We'll help you," I cried out of relief. But minutes later, I began to recognize the road ahead. Then, through the glow of the headlights, I saw it. The tall gray gates. The steel sign that read, Factory 401. Panic took over. I screamed, tried to open the door, but the car doors were locked. He smiled in the rearview mirror and said, "Don't worry. You'll be well taken care of." They dragged me out of the car, beat me until I collapsed, then shoved me into a giant freezer, the iron door slamming shut behind me. The floor was cold, wet, sticky with blood. The air was thick, freezing, heavy enough to crush my lungs. I pounded on the door, screamed until my voice broke, but only my own echo answered me. So I took the piece of aluminum I had hidden in my pocket and used it to end it, to escape this hell. When I opened my eyes, the ceiling above me was blindingly white. The sharp smell of disinfectant filled my nose. My wrist was bandaged. I guessed I was in a hospital. I was still alive. But the man sitting beside my bed was one of the factory director's loyal dogs. Him, the one who used to look at me with disgusting hunger in his eyes. The one who beat me, who forced me to obey. I hated him down to the bone. And yet he was the one who saved me. I didn't have time to figure out if he was showing mercy or just setting another trap. If fate refused to let me die, Then I had to save myself. I lay still, pretending to sleep, listening to his footsteps. When I heard the faint click of a lighter, I knew he had stepped outside to smoke. This was my only chance. I pulled out the 4-needle, stole his coat, and slipped quietly out of the hospital. The night air was freezing. I wandered down the empty asphalt road, hugging the walls for cover. Woo! Woo! The howl of a police siren tore through the darkness. I froze instantly, pressing myself into the shadows, holding my breath. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would burst. That sound, it brought back the memory of the officer's smile, that sickening moment when I realized I'd been betrayed. I couldn't trust anyone in uniform ever again. But I couldn't keep wandering forever. The city wasn't far now. I reached into the coat pocket. By some miracle, a few of his bills were still there. Just enough to buy a bus ticket to the city center. On the late-night bus, I curled up in the back row, pulling the coat sleeves down to hide my bandaged wrist. A few passengers glanced at me, my filthy clothes, my pale face, but then turned away, back to their phones, their sleep, their own lives. The indifference of the city became the perfect disguise. When I stepped off at the last stop, I knew I'd reached the city's edge. I tried to calm myself with one fragile belief, that in a big city, the police headquarters, where law and power should be watched more closely, couldn't he all be bought? I had to get there. It was my last gamble. The will to survive pumped a wild rush of adrenaline through my exhausted body. I kept walking, against pain, against fatigue, toward the shimmering lights of the city center ahead. When my body was on the verge of collapse, I finally reached the city police headquarters. I stepped inside and collapsed right at the front desk. Nothing after that came easily. At first, no one believed me, a panicked, injured girl who had just escaped from the hospital, claiming she had fled from a secret factory that harvested human organs. They called in a psychiatrist, convinced I was delusional. Later, I was placed in a special care room. Once I began to calm down, I told them everything, in full detail, the factory's location, its layout, its production process, and how all the workers shared one thing in common. They were people no one would ever come looking for if they disappeared or died. That was when a senior investigator began to take notice. They sent an undercover team to the outskirts to verify my story. The agent posed as a poor laborer looking for work, carrying a hidden mini camera. A few days later, the evidence arrived. The tiny camera had captured the horrifying truth. On the surface, it was just a normal canned goods factory, but beneath it, in a hidden tunnel, they found a cold operating room, where at night kidnapped victims were taken below. Cut open, their organs harvested, preserved in cold storage and packaged into so-called products. The agent captured everything. Once the evidence was secured, a large-scale raid was launched. Police stormed the remote compound. The iron gates were blown open, sirens from dozens of tactical vehicles screamed through the night. The entire illegal operation was shut down in minutes. Hundreds of people, from laborers to mid-level managers, were arrested, and the police officer who had returned me to the factory was caught at his desk. He fought back wildly, but there was no escape. The case exposed one of the largest organ trafficking networks ever uncovered, a web of human trafficking and corruption. But the factory's director, the man at the top, had vanished. It seemed he had been warned. By the time the police stormed the building, his office was empty. Only a few half-burned papers remained. They told me I was safe now. The factory had been destroyed. The guilty had been punished. But I still feel scared. Because I knew as long as that man still hides somewhere out there, Factory 401 will remain an open wound in my soul. I used to be a night guard at a high school, one of those quiet, ordinary ones on the city's northern edge. It was tucked right beside an acacia forest, with just 3 classroom buildings, a soccer field, and the main admin office sitting in the middle. I worked there for nearly 2 years. Everything was peaceful, until the night of Tuesday, December 17th, last year. That night, it was cold and rainy. Wind howled through the hallways, rattling the metal roof with sharp metallic clangs. The other guard had called in sick, so I was alone. I sat in the security room, sipping coffee, eyes fixed on the row of surveillance monitors like usual. But around 1 a.m., the camera feed for Building B suddenly went dark. I stood up and looked closer. Monitor number 5 showed nothing but pitch black, accompanied by a steady double sound. I checked the power. I checked the network connection. Everything seemed perfectly normal. I figured it was just a glitch, something I'd report to the maintenance crew in the morning. No big deal. but 10 minutes later, I heard the classroom bell ring from Building B. I froze. That building, the one with the camera down, should have been empty at this hour. Thinking it might be an intruder, I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out to investigate. The flickering yellow glow of the hallway lights swayed with every gust of wind. It was about a 3-minute walk from the security office to Building B across the courtyard. The rain had softened to a light drizzle, but my footsteps echoed loudly on the wet tile. When I got to Building B, I saw the main door was already ajar. I gave it a gentle push, and the hinges let out this long, chilling creak that seemed to hang in the air. Inside, the hallway was even dimmer, with the lights flickering and patchy. A few of the classroom doors were standing wide open. I swept my flashlight beam along the walls, and that's when I saw it. Long, wet handprints smeared down the wall. It trailed all the way to the floor, and then just vanished down the corridor. My voice was shaky, but I called out, "Who's there?" The only response was the soft patter of the rain and the whistling wind coming through an unlatched window somewhere down the hall. I started walking, my heart thumping against my ribs. I made my way to room 12B, the first classroom on the left. The door was slightly open. I pushed it gently and shined my light inside. The desks and chairs were all neatly arranged, just as they should be. But on the chalkboard, a message was scrawled in fresh white chalk. It said, "Help me." The writing was so new that chalk dust still clung to the board and was scattered on the floor right below it. I just stood there, completely frozen. 100 different possibilities were racing through my mind. Was this a trespassing student in trouble? A twisted prank? Simple vandalism? Before I could even begin to process it, I heard footsteps right behind me. They were slow, heavy. I spun around, raising my flashlight, ready for whatever was there, but suddenly, everything went dead silent. All I could hear was the pounding of my own heart. Then, a sharp static burst erupted from my walkie-talkie. Bzzzt! I jolted, lifted it to my ear. A faint, static-soaked whisper slipped through the noise. As if someone's mouth was right next to my ear. "Don't go any further." A deep, paralyzing chill shot down my spine. Every muscle in my body seized up. I just stood there, unable to move. After a few seconds, I shook my head, forcing out a nervous laugh, telling myself I was just exhausted, hallucinating. I turned around and started heading back toward the security office, my pace quickening with every step. But the moment I pushed the door to the office open, I saw it. The camera feed for Building B monitor number 5, the one that had gone dark, it was suddenly back on, and on the screen was me. I was standing completely still in the middle of the hallway I had just left. My flashlight was on. I was wearing the same clothes, standing in the exact same posture. It was me, exactly, but I was right here, standing inside the security room. I stared at the monitor, my heart hammering against my chest so hard I thought it would break. Then the me on the screen slowly, unnaturally lifted its head, and it looked straight into the camera, and it smiled. It was this twisted, grotesque smile, stretching impossibly wide, almost reaching its ears. At that exact same moment, my walkie-talkie crackled to life again. This time, it was filled with the sound of heavy, raspy breathing. Breathing that was definitely not mine. In a pure panic, I scrambled behind the desk and yanked the power cord for the monitors right out of the wall. But the screen didn't turn off. It stayed on, glowing with that impossible image. Then, feed number 3 began flickering, and suddenly switched to a new view, inside classroom 12B. The words, "Help me," that had been on the blackboard were gone, wiped completely clean. In their place were 2 new words, scrawled hastily and much, much larger. They said, "Too late." That's when I ran. I bolted out of the office and sprinted for the front gate of the school. The rain was coming down hard again, slamming against my face like 1,000 tiny needles. My hands were trembling so violently I couldn't get the key into the lock. That's when I realized the gate was locked from the outside. I screamed into my walkie-talkie for help, for anyone. But there was no response. Just a faint shuffling sound coming from behind me. It sounded like dozens of footsteps, dragging slowly across the wet tile of the courtyard. I turned around, my breath catching in my throat. The entire courtyard was drowned in a thin, eerie layer of fog. The dim security lights flickered across the rain-soaked puddles on the ground, and that's where they were. Dozens of students, all wearing the same school uniform. All of them drenched in rainwater as if they'd been standing out there for hours. They were scattered across the yard, standing in perfect silence. And they were all facing me. Their skin was pale, almost waxy, like a mannequin's, and every single one of them had no eyes, just dark, empty sockets. I stumbled backward, my feet slipping on the slick, soaked tile, and my body crashed hard to the ground. My face turned skyward, the rain stabbing my skin like 1,000 pins. The cold seeped through my eyelids, into my lungs. The flashlight rolled beside me, flickered, then went out. My vision blurred, and the last thing I remember was the sound of the school bell, ringing slow, drawn out until everything. The next morning, my coworkers found me unconscious in the courtyard. They said when they arrived, there was no one else on the school grounds. No students, no intruders, nothing at all. They told me the security cameras hadn't recorded any footage from that night except for one single solitary frame. It was a still image of me standing in the hallway of Building B, my head tilted up, staring directly into the lens, with that same twisted, unnatural smile. They told me I was suffering from paranoid delusions, that it was the result of working too many night shifts for too long. But I swear, that wasn't me. And everything I saw, every word I've told you, was the truth. After that night, I quit my job. I moved to the next town over, opened a small convenience shop, hoping I could forget everything. But even now, whenever the sky suddenly breaks into rain at midnight, I swear I can still hear that classroom bell ringing in my head, faint, lingering, haunting me straight to the bone. I don't know why I remember every detail so clearly, but if you've ever felt hunted inside your own home, you'll understand. It's the kind of thing that haunts you until the day you die. That night, after a friend's party, my girlfriend and I had a small argument. I drove her out to my family's cabin in the countryside about 5 miles from town. We'd planned to stay just for the night and head back in the morning. No neighbors, no phone signal, just woods, and a narrow dirt road leading in. I thought the quiet would make things easier, but I was wrong. A little after 3 a.m., I woke up to the sound of knocking. Not loud, just 3 slow taps. Knock, knock, knock. I stayed still for a few seconds, thinking maybe I imagined it. Then 3 more knocks. I decided to get up and check. I peeked through the curtain. There was a girl standing outside, but her face was covered by a clown mask. I cracked the door open, keeping the chain locked, and asked her what she needed. Her voice came out raspy and quiet, dragging each word as she asked if James was there. I told her she had the wrong house. She didn't say anything else, only paused, gave a small nod, and quietly turned away into the darkness. I locked the door, trying to stay calm. My girlfriend sat up and asked who it was. I told her it was just someone who got lost. But no one gets lost out here. A while later, I heard a soft scratching sound on the wall, like metal scraping against wood. Then more knocking, but this time from the back door. I grabbed my father's old hunting rifle and slowly walked into the kitchen. The dim yellow light from the kitchen lamp lit up the door, shaking violently now. Bang, bang! Like someone was pounding on it with something heavy. I shouted, "Who's there?" But there was no response. Just the sound of an axe hitting the door, thud, thud, each strike heavy, dry and slow. With every blow, it seemed to get closer. I stepped back, rifle trembling in my hands. Suddenly, from the living room, my girlfriend screamed that someone was at the window. I ran. Through the curtain, I saw a tall man wearing a white mask, standing still in the yard. His neck tilted slightly to one side. He just stood there, staring at the house. I turned off all the lights and pulled my girlfriend upstairs. We pushed a dresser against the door and stayed silent. But footsteps echoed from the bottom of the stairs. Thud, 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 then faster, louder, rushing upward. I knew we couldn't stay. I helped her climb out through a small window leading to the roof. At that moment, crack, the door burst open. An axe came down, splitting the dresser just inches from my back. I turned and pulled the trigger. The gunshot rang out, smoke filling the room. I scrambled out, grabbed her hand, and we ran along the roof, jumping down into the backyard. She fell, her hand scraped and bleeding, but she didn't stop. We ran to the car, but the engine only let out a dry, sputtering whine. The hood was popped open. The wires had been cut. Someone had sabotaged it beforehand. I yanked her out of the car and we sprinted into the woods. Branches whipped our faces. Mud sucked at our ankles. Behind us, a flashlight flickered through the trees, sometimes near, sometimes far. They weren't running. They walked slowly, deliberately, like they knew we wouldn't get far. Every time we stopped to listen, we'd hear it again. Knock, knock, knock. From a different direction. As if hundreds of hands were knocking on tree trunks all around us. After nearly half an hour of running, we spotted an abandoned storage shed. I pulled her inside and jammed the rusted iron bar across the door. It was pitch black inside, thick with the smell of dust and old gasoline. We hid behind a pile of burlap sacks. Then the footsteps came again, very close. A soft scraping sound against the wooden boards followed. Scrare, 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 then a whisper seeping through the slats. You hide well, ... She cried without a sound, her tears mixing with dirt on her face. I pressed my ear to the wall, hearing footsteps circling the shed. A shadow passed across a slit of light, then vanished. The silence that followed felt unnatural, thick, waiting. After what felt like forever, I gathered what little courage I had left, slowly crawling toward the door. My hands shook from fear, my heart pounding like it might tear through my chest. The wooden door creaked softly as I cracked it open. Pale, misty light filtered in, and I saw them. The two figures with white masks were still there. Not speaking, not moving, just standing only a few dozen feet away. They stood motionless in the fog, as if they'd been waiting, staring directly at the door I had just opened. In that moment, it wasn't fear anymore, it was paralysis. I turned back, grabbed her hand tightly, almost dragging her. Run. We bolted out of the shed, crashing through the woods. We didn't stop, didn't dare look back. It wasn't until we saw the main road leading back to town that I thought I might collapse. And then a truck approached. I stumbled into the middle of the road, waving frantically like a madman. The driver hit the brakes, startled, and pulled us into the cab, asking what had happened. But I couldn't answer. My throat was dry and burning, my body trembling uncontrollably. I managed to glance back, and I still saw them, standing at the tree line where we had just escaped. One of them slowly raised a hand and waved. We reached the town just as the sun began to rise. We were both completely exhausted, clothes torn, faces pale. The driver took us straight to the police station. I remember how raw my throat was, I could barely form a sentence, but I forced myself to tell everything, every detail. That very morning, police cordoned off the area around the shed for investigation. They said they found nothing but a few faint footprints in the dirt, no fingerprints, no DNA. Nothing that could reveal who those people were. Every trace had been scrambled, real and fake evidence mixed together, like it had been staged in advance. Everyone said we were lucky to survive that night, but lucky? No. We lived because they wanted us to. Because to them, our fear was the most thrilling part of the game.